I understand that Mr. Shettima is back. Okay. Mr. Shettima, can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
All right, beautiful. Please go ahead.
Yeah. It's on record that the 1993 election was the most free and fairest election so far, and there are other subsequent elections that comes after that also. But having said that, we are still faced with a lot of challenges from one problem to another. Even though the last election was, to an extent, one will commend the effort of the INEC. They have done well, despite all of the shortcomings. One would not expect us to have a perfect system, even in America, where we tend to always believe that they are almost the best. They also have their shortcomings. So, but however, I believe there are also room for improvements. So we hope so. We'll get there.
Recently, the Arawa Youth Consultative Forum released a statement urging Nigerians to remain vigilant against any attempt by what you call corrupt politicians to subvert democracy. How much of threat is our democracy under, and what are the factors that bother you in this regard?
Well, my concern is that when we look at issues from our gathering and findings, we realize also, to an extent, some politicians are busy mobilizing people to undermine the government, specifically not only undermining the government, but looking at some of the appointees of the government and attack on them, especially from northern part of the country. And to be specific, we are talking about Matawale at the time when that comes. They will just come to Abuja and they will just mobilize people, believing that he's one of the most strongest loyalists he has in the northern part of the country. So some groups of people just wake up all of a sudden, be mobilized to come to Abuja and also go to certain remote area in Abuja to mobilize people in the name of protest against certain loyalists of this government and attack on them, so that at the end of the day, they subvert the issue. They make it as if they are attacking an individual or one of the appointees. But for us, we also know that it's a step. There is more to it. They are not only attacking an individual or one of the appointees, but they are doing that to undermine the government. So for us that believes in the country and that believes that even though things are not okay, but we are very, very much optimistic that believing that things will work, might not be immediately, because we also know that, in fairness to the government, the last 8 years of General Muhammadu Buhari has not done well. Today, if there's any section of the country that is taking the hit more, it's another part of this country where the poverty moves and strike on daily basis. You look at how people are, the issue of insecurity is high, and so many issues. So for us, we believe we need a peaceful, conducive atmosphere for government to strive and also bring development to our people. So anything that will undermine democracy, we will stand to resist it, because we have made a lot of sacrifices. And that's why we raised the alarm at that time.
All right, Mr. Shettima. So because MK Abiola believed that democracy offered the best chance to fight poverty and eliminate it from our society, well, would you say successive governments, or how would you say successive governments have fared or have lived up to the dreams of the founding fathers of democracy?
In all honesty, they have failed, because let me specifically talk about MKO, that I was far younger at the time of that election. But I knew what he stood for, his manifestos, because we were able to read through and understand that everything he put up in that manifesto was issue that has to do with the common people, where tribal or religion cannot be yardsticks to why we cannot be together as a country, where he also feels that Nigeria is his own primary constituencies, and to that extent, what affects a man in northern part of the country affects his fellow man in southern part of the country. So for him, he looks at the country at large and also take everybody along. So in that case, to an extent today, the narrative is very clear that we are more divided than we were in the past. We are more suspicious of ourselves as Nigerians, And we are at the very critical time that one will expect that any government that comes now has no duty other than putting us together as a country, unite us so that at the end of the day, we can all work all together for us to have a country that we can all be proud of.
And hopefully we'll see that play out under this administration, Mr. Shettima.
So.
Well, let's talk about the concern of your forum as regards youth participation in government in the past 31 years. Despite making up a significant portion of the population, the Nigerian youth participation in formal political processes remains low. What specific barriers have hindered young people and their political engagement over the past 25 years?
Well, it's very sad to say that despite the effort of this very government that just came in recently, that has demonstrated and also take cognizance of the importance of the Nigerian youth, to an extent we can say, without missing a word, that we can feel and we can see some of the effort of the government in bringing the youth to the fore to participate. I will still ask that there's also still room to also improve, unlike what was obtained in the past administrations. So we believe strongly that there's room for improvement and they can do better. Just that we have a situation where some of us have a reservation on the system, believing that the way the system is being run, probably the impact might not be felt seriously and there might not be much synergy between the younger generation and the elders so far. I'm of the view that
we've seen interventions, Mr. Shettima.
For us to make.
We've seen interventions like the Not Too Young to Run Act. How effective have initiatives of this nature been, in changing the narrative for young people in Nigeria, especially
it has not changed anything much that one would have expected or what anybody would have feel positive side of it, because don't forget that election in this country today, you need too much money in your hand to contest. People are not allowed to come and merit to win an election. Very rare. Until recently, we have a case in Kaduna, where I come from, that where few people that do not have money had opportunity because people stood by them because of their popularity and they got it right. And ordinary Okada man became a member of House of Reps, and few full hand of people, younger generations. But we need to improve more, because the election in this country, if you don't have money, you don't get it right. And because the system also contributes, and that's why some of us felt that there's a need to totally decentralize the system. Unlike it is now that the center has become so strong and becomes very hard for anybody who has no godfather, who has no money in his account, or does not have anybody who will bankroll his campaigns, will be very difficult to secure an office. So we need more where somebody can get an office through merit, through performance and his popularity, without money or without any influence of any godfatherism. And by so doing, we will get it right. But under this arrangement, it will be very difficult. It is very expensive. The chances of people who do not have godfather to secure any political office now will be very, very hard. And it's not done anywhere like that. So for us, we will still advocate that the right thing be done, and let us find a way to kill this monster that always stand our ways, that if you don't have money or godfather, you cannot become a political leader in this country. It's not done anywhere. We need to encourage more younger elements to occupy the political space.
All right, so let me deviate a bit. Historians told us that merit and unity was what June 12 represented. So let me ask you, what is the role of the political class in enhancing national integration in Nigeria?
Well, like I said, and I repeat again, and I will continue to repeat, the idea of the June 12, that some of us see it as a symbol of unity, becomes a rallying point to some of us that every year we make sure wherever we are, we come all the way from the north to participate in the June 12th struggle, was nothing other than seeing how we can continue to encourage and unite the country. And that's the ideal behind the June 12th struggle. And I also rephrase your mind, I said it earlier, that I said we are very, very much divided. Despite all of these efforts, the successive government in the past have not done enough to unite the country. And that also become an opposite of what June 12 stood for or what Chief MK Abiola stands for. So it's terrible.
When you say that we're more divided today than before, I mean, that's a conversation that is rife. Many people have identified ethnic and religious division. But the last election proved otherwise. We saw a Muslim ticket win. We saw the North working with the South in this regard. Do you think we are overemphasizing our differences and politicians seem to understand how to make it work for their own benefits?
The reason why you see that work, it also has to do with the individuals that contested the elections, from their backgrounds and what they have achieved over the past years. Like the president of today, Alhaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu, some of us have worked closely with him during the dark days and also during the struggle as a foot soldiers. And to an extent, is somebody I know personally that I've worked closely with. At no point he made me believe, or some of us who were close to him feel that he's looking at us as just a northernant. He has been mentor to some of us and we work closely with him, and at no point he makes us feel we are not from the south. And to that extent, he wore the heart of so many of us in the northern part of the country. And same also applies to the vice president, who also had did his best, did what another prominent people around that comes to the fore to canvass for support and so on, and that was why it was possible.
Interesting way you have put it. Let me take you back to youth engagement very quickly. But by the way, we are getting some live images from Abuja, where the dinner is ongoing at the banquet hall of the State House at the presidential villa. And that's where we're headed to after this conversation as the federal government continues to celebrate Nigeria's 25th year of unbroken democratic rule. But Mr. Shettima, Nigeria has seen a surge in youth-led movements like the NSAS a few years ago. What does this say about the state of youth trust in democratic institutions? Because earlier on we talked about how younger people have not been given the chance to win elections. But on the other side, we've not also seen so much interest, in political developments amongst young people.
Probably because they were not given proper space to occupy. And I said, but in fairness to this government, to an extent, they were a bit better compared to the previous governments. To that extent, this gives a lot of us hope that things may likely work in the nearest future, unlike what is obtained in the past. But I still give you one of the major factors is that contesting an election in Nigeria, you need too much money in your account to contest. Merit or your popularity or your goodwill is not enough to give you an office. So until we decentralize the center, where some of those things, money or God for that reason, will not count, but rather people around your constituency will matter, and they decide who goes there, who does not go there.
There's a huge trust deficit, between the led and those who lead them in this part of the world. And it comes with perhaps the experience they've had in the past. How do you think this government can overcome it?
Well, the government will have to improve and do better and bring in people who are truly patriotic to the country, no matter their class and whatever, bring them to the fore, encourage them to be part of the system, because you need to bring people to the fore so that you can encourage them to do. Because you don't expect, you keep them off and you expect that things just work like that without having anything that will at the end of the day become distractions. So the government must be encouraged to do better and do more. And I thank God from onset, the antecedent of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, it has always been his lifestyle. And we expect more from him, though this is a different challenge he's facing now, but we hope we shall overcome at the end of the day.
Wow.
So let me take you up on some of the features of democracy. I mean, talk about rule of law, social justice, fundamental human rights. But when it comes to administration of justice in Nigeria, for you, what are the challenges? What are the issues?
We are not yet there. To some of us, we'll give thanks to God that today some of us can come up and talk without anybody intimidating us, unlike it was in the past 2 decades. We can speak our mind freely without anybody interrupting or without anybody harassing us, even though there are a handful of some of these intimidations. Some journalists go through all sorts of things, and which we condemn in totality. It's not done anywhere. But the government can also improve to ensure that some of those things are well taken care of. We run a democracy. We are not running. We are not in Banana Republic where people will just sit down from their comfort zone without going through due processes and begin to harass or intimidate people. This cannot work. The more you continue, the more we'll continue. The more people will continue to resist it.
Indeed.
So I hope
Mr.
they
Shettima,
begin to learn that things are not done that way. Just do the right thing, that's all, and allow people to rest, and you rest. But when you say people will not rest and you just do it your own way because you believe you have power, this thing is a transient something that a time will come that you no longer be there, and of course you reap what you sow, and that's always the case. So
hold that thought for a minute, Mr. Shettima.